Welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror film and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 1990's Gremlins 2: The New Batch, which was directed by Joe Dante. I'm your co-host Alec.
I'm Eric.
Hey, there he is. Eric.
G2, baby. G2.
G2. That's what they call this. This is like G2 TNB, The New Batch.
That was in that Keen Peele sketch when he's like, "This is G2, baby." Like,
dude, seriously, I sent you that sketch before we talked about anything. How amazing is that sketch?
you have to see Gremlins 2 to really laugh at it. There's no way you would be like, "Okay, this is stupid," but okay. But I just watched Gremlins 2, immediately clicked the link, and was laughing my ass off, Alec. That was so funny. That was so funny.
I haven't laughed that hard in a long time.
Yeah, no, it got me.
You have to have seen this film pretty recently to understand what they're doing. But, dude, when Jordan Peele walks in, he's like, "Are you telling me that the entire point of this gremlin is to look stupid as fuck in this movie?" Absolutely, that is going in the movie.
No, he's like googly-eyed gremlin. Is that your gremlin? I love it. It is in the movie.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't seen that sketch, my God, if you've seen this movie, you have to go watch that sketch. It's so perfect.
Googly-eyed gremlin? You mean a gremlin that's in the movie and its sole purpose is to be dumb as fuck? It is in the movie.
I mean, that character is so perfect. But anyways, that sketch aside, it's amazing. Go watch it. This is a fun little sequel. Eric, and this is your first time seeing it, right?
Wow, man, I definitely saw this when I was younger. I just don't, nothing. It was blank slate for me, though.
You don't remember anything?
I briefly remember the stupid hat Phoebe Cates is wearing and a couple other. I knew it was business corporate, but man, I was like, oh man, I don't remember it being this. I remember the Snow White scene when they're all watching Snow White, but that was about it. Yeah, so it was pretty much like watching it for the first time.
You didn't remember Hulk Hogan coming in?
I did not. The Hulkster? I did not remember that.
Wow. Yes, this pre-canceled Hulk Hogan. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I definitely saw this when I was a kid. Same thing. I haven't seen it in probably like 20 years, maybe even more. But yeah, the only thing I really remember was the electricity gremlin. I remember that very well from when I was a kid. I always liked that one a lot. And the spider gremlin, because I was scared of spiders.
I thought you liked vegetable gremlin because you're a vegetarian.
No, I mean, I do like him. I think he's one of the cooler looking gremlins, the vegetarian gremlin.
You know, bat gremlin.
Fat gremlin?
Bat gremlin, the one that turns into a gargoyle when it lands in concrete and flies up.
Bat gremlin, yes. I did like that. Yeah, and it smashes through the wall and it looks like the perfect bat symbol. Like, yeah, it's fun. We're having fun.
Can I ask you, if you could add a gremlin to this movie, what gremlin would you add? The G2 baby?
I'd probably have like a robot gremlin. Like he's half
Mecha gremlin, dude, that was one of mine. Holy shit.
Yeah. I was gonna say like cyborg gremlin, like RoboCop gremlin or something.
Love it. I thought of a stoner gremlin, like a gremlin that's really like, yeah, man. And wearing a tie-dye shirt. That'd be cool. Trucker gremlin, like Larry the Cable Guy gremlin.
Oh, okay.
Like always spitting into a cup.
Yeah, what about like karate gremlin? We can get like a kung fu gremlin.
Dojo gremlin, like it. Not bad.
Yeah, so I guess like we get, because the Mogwai when Gizmo before he actually, the evil gremlins come or whatever, he's dressing up as Rambo, he's dressing up as Rocky, like he's doing even his own little stuff.
True. So he's like action movie gremlin, kind of.
Yeah, and then all the other gremlins are just everything, like literally everything. So, do you know much about like how this movie got made? Like why there was such a gap between the first and second one?
I'd imagine that the first movie did very well, and it started becoming a cultural icon thing, like Alf or Hulk Hogan. Like it became like an '80s thing, and it probably made a good amount of money with T-shirts and other stuff. And they're like, "We're making a second one," and the director's like, "Not without me," probably, or he forced into it. I'm sure.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, it was hugely successful. The first one was one of the biggest movies of 1984. Joe Dante, after that, they were like, hey, we want to make a second one. And he was like, we don't have any ideas. Like, it kind of ended. Like, do you remember the first one, how it ended? Like, the Mr. Wynn or whatever, he comes back and he's like, you guys aren't ready.
He takes the gremlin back, and that's that.
Yeah. And he's like, you're not ready for this. So he takes the gremlins away, walks out, into the small town or whatever. And you're like, that was a pretty solid movie.
And Gizmo's just like bye bye, and that's it. Howie
Yeah.
Mandel.
And you're like, wow, and that's over. But then, yeah, Warner Brothers is like, we want money. So they asked him to do it. He kept turning them down. He kept doing all these other movies. Apparently, he had just like so many bombs after bomb after bomb. And finally, he made The Burbs with Tom Hanks in 1989. That was pretty
Mm-hmm.
successful. And then they're like, hey, you want to do Gremlins 2 now? Because, like, you haven't been really doing so hot the past few years. So he said, fine, I'll come back and do it, but I'll do it under one set of circumstances. I want complete creative control. Like, anything I say goes. And the first one was so successful, Warner Brothers said they let him do it. And that's why this movie,
It's crazy.
like, this movie's, it's, yeah.
It's bad shit. Like we're putting Looney Tunes in the beginning of the movie. Like what?
Yeah.
Like Looney Tunes beginning of the movie and ending.
That was weird. I didn't really get that.
I think that's Joe Dante being knowing at the end of the movie. I was like, just throw this in there. Apparently, someone made this. So
Yeah. So, yeah.
why? Why was that in there? Because then it literally goes from that to just Gremlins 2. Like hard.
I don't hate it. You know, I don't have, I like Looney Tunes. I think it's funny.
No, but you see that in the title, you're just like, oh, buckle up. This is one of those sequels.
We're just like, what is happening right now?
I know, I know. Well, you get a sense that he's like, all right, I'm going to make a movie that's really fun for a movie theater to be in. And you kind of see that with Hulk Hogan breaking the fourth wall and the Gremlins watching a movie. It's like, it's for kids in a movie theater, like 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds. And it should be fun. Like, it's crazy.
I mean, I don't think anybody can watch this movie and say it's not fun. I mean, my God, it's all over the place. It's just wacky, turned up to 11. It's funny. It's way more funny than the first one. Like, the first one, actually, you're like, whoa, like people are dying in this movie. Like, this is pretty intense.
I mean, the first one's worlds better, dude. Come on. Like, worlds better. And when it comes to story and plot,
Yeah.
it's way better.
Yeah.
But this one's fun. Like you said, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's more like slapsticky, you know, and but I will say there was one part in this movie that made me laugh so hard. And it's kind of when they're like pulling apart the rules of Gremlins. They're like, so you're telling me you can't spill water on them? Like all these like yuppies are like laughing about it or whatever. And there's the one line where the guy's like, so what if they're on like an airplane? It's always midnight somewhere. And he turns and all of a sudden the gremlin busts out of the thing and slices his throat. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, that's the thing about this movie. To me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Gremlins are way more aggressive in this movie, right? It's more violent. It's kind of more. I mean, the part with the snowplow and that guy somehow survived and everything, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, whatever.
Well, it's more slapstick violence. Like the first one's like, I mean, legit. Like their gremlins getting put into the blender and getting like blended up and stuff and like bloody. This one's, yeah, I think this one's just goofier.
Yeah, I like the CEO throwing a gremlin into the paper shredder and then
Yeah.
just being like totally calm, cool, and collective when Bill or Will shows up.
Yeah.
And he's like, that was wild. And it's like, okay.
Well, I mean, I think this entire movie is basically just it's just like a parody of sequels. It's a parody of just culture at large at the time, like what was popular, this yuppie attitude from the 80s, you know.
Yeah, like high cocaine head CEOs and stuff. Like,
Well, they're making fun of Trump, like that what's his name, Clamp or something?
Clamp, yeah. It's kind of Trump, yeah, exactly.
Dude, the book that he wrote is in the exact same font as Trump's Art of War or whatever. Like it's exactly the same.
Okay, I really was. I'm just so sick of Trump that I just ignored anything. Like subconsciously, this has nothing to do with our world.
Well, it's kind of interesting though. So the guy that plays Clamp or whatever his name is John Glover in real life. And you being a huge Smallville fan, Eric, I mean, it's one of your favorite shows. You should recognize.
Stop it. Stop it. That's not true. No, that's not true. I like Smallville, like the first few seasons. It was a fun show in like the early 2000s. But let's move on.
Anyway, so he's Lex Luthor's dad in Smallville. So I recognized him. I was like, oh, why do I know that guy? But the thing that's interesting about him is the way that the character was written. He was supposed to be like this Trump, the Ted Turner, like just corporate kind of asshole. But the actor was so likable on set that they're like, fuck.
That's what I was going to say. Like, is he a bad CEO? It's like, no, he's just weird. I guess he owns a Big Brother Corp that is bad, but he didn't seem like a bad guy.
Exactly.
It was weird. It was weird.
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't written like that, but the actor was like so likable. Everybody in set was like, "Dude, well, like I love you."
don't make him the bad guy. It's like, well, like we'll make the company the bad guy, but he's the good guy.
Well, they already have the Gremlins. I mean, they're the bad guys.
Yeah, I know exactly. Like Gremlins are the bad guy. Should be the bad guy.
So now you got this guy who's just kind of like, on paper, exactly, like on the script, he's the bad guy. But then you see him in the movie and you're like, he's kind of like friendly and more like eccentric.
I get the idea that like he owns the company and is the CEO, but he doesn't really run the company. Like I don't think he's the guy who would yell at you for having a potted plant at your desk. He seemed
No.
like way more open. Like, what is that? I love this. This is great. Like, ha ha ha. Like very like, oh, we should get together and meet and have coffee. It's like, okay, relax, guy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I recognize like everybody in the cast in this movie, dude. I mean, did you see anybody you're like, oh my God, that guy's in this or she's in this?
someone I didn't know. I recognize everyone pretty much. Yeah, the CEO I didn't recognize as Lex Luthor's dad from Smallville, but
Oh, yeah.
the majority of other people like Phoebe Cates, obviously.
Well, yeah, obviously her, but the guy that tells Bill or whatever, the main guy, he's like, hey, where'd you hear that song or whatever? And he's like, yeah, there's some people up on like the 30th floor or whatever. They're like, there was somebody whistling it.
Oh, the UPS guy,
That's what's his name from Breaking Bad? That's from the first.
Tito.
No, it's
Tito.
what the hell's his name? He's like in the first season, he's like the crazy guy.
Tito, right? Isn't it Tito or something?
No, I got it right here. It's Tuco
Oh, I
Salamanca.
was close. I was close. Tuco. That's it, not Tito. That's I knew it was him. I knew it was him. Yeah, but I sorry for getting the name wrong.
Tuco Salamanca, and then also I don't know if you realized it, but Uncle Hank's in it.
When's Uncle Hank in it?
He's one of the SWAT team people that breaks in.
Right. Wow, that's so cool. Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool that they're in the same show so many years later. That's neat.
Yeah, so I like that, and then also the redheaded smoking like woman that takes Billy out, his boss. Did you recognize her?
Yes, I'm thinking. Is that it reminds me from something from like a Batman movie or something? I couldn't pinpoint it. Who is that?
She's in she's like the hot girl from 16 Candles. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
I don't remember that. She kind of reminded me of like Poison Ivy from one of the Batman movies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Before Poison Ivy became Poison Ivy. I don't know. That was what I was picking up.
Also, the Japanese tourist, the guy who's like, he's like, "Do you take pictures?" He's like, "I am a camera." That guy's Long Duck Dong from 16 Candles. So I'm like,
Long
you
Duck
know,
Doll. But, yo, we got 80s all over the place. Just
dude,
80s.
it's so. And then also Julia Sweeney, she's from It's Pat or whatever in SNL. She was the lab receptionist in the beginning. Dude, there's just like
I'm just ready for it to be like my dad was in this movie because he was from the
my
80s.
dad.
Like,
No, and then Leonard Maltin, obviously the guy giving the report or the review of the movie, and then they kill him. It's like
yeah,
Which is like that makes no sense. So he's in Gremlins 2 reviewing Gremlins 1, but so that means that Gremlins exists in this movie?
I don't know. That was just wild. But also, I mean, who can forget Christopher Lee in this movie?
Of course. Oh my God.
What was he doing? He seems a little out of place. You know what? He's a horror icon too. He's a lot of icons like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. Horror is another thing. Like he played Dracula, So I think this is a cool way for him to get back into horror, but like staying with the youth, kind of like a Vincent Price kind of way of like doing things. But man, I liked him in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. He was amazing. Yeah. I mean, this is an all-star cast. I mean, if you like 80s movies, you're going to recognize almost everybody.
Everyone,
Yeah.
even Howie Mandel. Like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. Howie Mandel, he does the voice. I was a little bummed though that the mom and dad weren't back from the first one.
Yeah. I wonder why.
I looked it up a little bit. So, not the mom.
The dad was sick or something. I guess I don't know.
So the dad, I didn't know much about him, but he always reminded me of like a John Candy kind of guy, from the first one.
Yeah, he looked kind of unhealthy. If that's what you're going at, I don't know.
Well, he didn't die. He died in 1996, but he was apparently a really bad cocaine addict for most of his life. And I don't know if that's why they didn't bring him back, but yeah, just kind of, I don't know. Apparently, yeah, he died in like his early 60s. Like he died very young. He
Yeah.
was like a folk singer or whatever, but yeah, he had a really bad cocaine problem. He had a stroke, then he had heart attacks, and I mean, he was overweight too and stuff, but I don't know. It's just weird that they didn't bring him and the wife back from the first one, but they bring back.
They mentioned them. It's like, oh, your mom sent a pie. Someone sat on it on the train. So it's like
Yeah,
they're in the universe still. But
Yeah, but like, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Futtermans die in the first one?
yeah, the whole plow drove into their home, and I